Anyone who's been riding for a while knows that riding motorcycles involves some routine maintenance, such as cleaning and lubing your chain, changing your oil, replacing fluids, and while I believe in newer riders, they may neglect checking their tire pressures, in seasoned and more experienced riders, I believe those checks are done. But what if I told you there was one thing you could do to your bike right now that could drastically improve the feel and the smoothness and shifting of your bike? Unless you spend your free time reading motorcycle service manuals, I would guess that you've probably never serviced your clutch cable or your clutch free play. And believe it or not, you can do all this with just a few household items and some common lubricants. Let's get into it. Before we get started, you're going to want to gather a few supplies. Get yourself some silicone aerosol spray, some lithium grease, a Ziploc bag and a rubber band or a dedicated cable lubricator, a digital caliper or a ruler, and possibly some small wrenches, likely 8 to 10 mil. I will mention that some motorcycles have a self-lubricating cable or a hydraulic clutch system. In either of these cases, you're going to want to skip the entire lubrication part because it could possibly damage your motorcycle. Make sure to check your service manual and see if this is required for your bike. In my service manual, the manufacturer recommends doing this, especially after a muddy or a wet ride. The first thing you're going to want to do, if your bike is anything like mine, it's going to have this stop here and then the adjuster. Some motorcycles have two adjusters, so you'll just want to loosen off one and then loosen off the other. But for me, this is what is keeping the adjuster from moving. So I'm just going to remove this screw here, and then this clip just comes right out. Okay, next you're going to want to back off the adjuster until you start to see the clutch cable having a lot of slack. And then you're going to want to line up the slot on the adjuster with the slot on the housing here. Okay, and then at this point, the clutch cable should be able to be pulled pretty easily out of the housing, just like that. Pops out the bottom, and then you're left with this little nub. Okay, now let's get to one of my favorite hacks in the motorcycling world. So all you need is a small sandwich-sized Ziploc bag, and you're just gonna cut a little hole in the end of it, just like that. Okay, and you're gonna bring it over to your cable. Okay, and you're gonna feed the cable through. Okay, it's a little bit small, so let's cut a little bit of a bigger hole. Okay, and you're just gonna feed it through until it comes over the rubber part, the rubber hose. Okay, and then you're gonna take an elastic band and you're gonna wrap it around as tightly as you can. Okay, and once you're done that, you're just gonna take the plastic bag and invert it. Okay, and it might help to cut a little bit off of the end as well, just so you don't have as much of this to work with. Okay, and now what you're gonna do is you're gonna take some silicone spray and you're gonna start lubing up the cable. Just so you guys know, in general, you're gonna wanna use silicone for anything that's not metal on metal, so metal on rubber, plastic on plastic, metal on plastic, vinyl, that type of thing. And you're gonna wanna use lithium grease for anything that's metal on metal. Okay, so now what you're gonna wanna do is take your silicone spray and start spraying the inside of that cable. Okay, and like as you do this, start working the cable through a little bit. While we're waiting for the lubricant to seep through, I want to show you how to set the adjuster here. So there's two lock nuts. All you're going to do is you're just going to loosen both of them off. Okay, just enough, and then you can do this by hand. Okay, and so essentially, the way this works is the more you push the adjuster this way, the tighter the cable is going to be up at the clutch lever. The more that you push the cable this way, the looser that the cable is going to be up at the clutch lever. Okay, so I know mine is a little bit loose, so I'm just going to push it a little bit to the left. Okay, so we're going to call that good there. Okay, we're going to tighten both these lock nuts down. Okay, and we're going to double check again at the clutch lever when we check our free play. Okay, and you'll know you've done a good job when you start to see lubricant drip out of the bottom. Okay, let's take off our plastic bag. Okay, we're just going to wipe off some of the excess silicone on this end as well. Okay, next thing is, like I said before, metal on metal, you're going to want a little bit of grease, so I'm going to put a little on my finger here. And I'm just going to lubricate this end. Okay, and next you're going to put the clutch cable back into the lever. So you're just going to do the opposite of how you started. Okay, push it in, and then you're going to make sure this is lined up again. Okay, and pull the cable through. Push it in, and then everything's locked back into place. Okay, and the very last thing we're going to do is set our clutch slack, also known as our clutch free play. So we're going to take the adjuster, start turning it. So you can see as you do that, it starts to pull the lever. So we're just going to pull, honestly, all the way until the clutch lever is all the way against the assembly here. And then we're going to back it off a little bit more. And we're going to say right there is where we're going to try to set it. Okay, and if you don't know what clutch free play is it's the amount the clutch lever can move before it actually does anything to the clutch. So what you can see here is that I'm getting a little bit of a wiggle, and you can see that gap in between the lever and the housing. But then if I pull it further, then now there's some resistance. So it's just kind of that area where there's little to no resistance. To check the free play, I'm going to be using this digital caliper. If you don't know how a caliper works, so this part on the bottom here is going to measure outside measurements, and this part here is going to check inside measurements. So we're going to use this top part here. Okay, and the free play on my motorcycle should be anywhere between 2 to 3 millimeters. So let's take a look at how I did. I just kind of eyeballed it, but if we measure this out, it's looking like 2.44 millimeters. So honestly, spot on. Okay, and the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add this locking clip so that our adjuster doesn't move when I'm riding. Okay, and so you can see that keeps this from moving on its own, which is what we want. I should also note that at this point, you don't want these two slots to be lined up. You want them offset because you don't want the cable accidentally slipping out when you're riding. So just turn it to the point and set your free play to the point where this isn't going to be aligned. Congratulations! Now you know how to properly lubricate and set the free play on your clutch cable. Thanks for watching, and make sure to ride safe.